Efe Ajagba knocks out Brian Howard in the third round, and what a tremendous knockout it was. One right hand, and Brian Howard crumpled to the canvas. Now, Efe Ajagba has come in for some criticism over the past few years, including from me. He hasn't looked particularly impressive. There's been performances against the likes of Jonathan Rice, against this guy here whose surname I won't try to pronounce, against Kaladze as well, Kajanu, where he did not look particularly impressive. He looked quite pedestrian in many of those fights. Now, just talking about something something I mentioned in the Jared Anderson video. Efe Ajagba at 6'6" weighs 239 pounds. Jared Anderson weighs 250 pounds and he's 6'4". So when people say Jared Anderson is small, well, he's not really that small, is he? And he's very well coordinated, far better coordinated than somebody like Efe Ajagba. Ajagba's got some reach on Anderson, couple inches in height. He's actually lighter, nowhere near as well coordinated, nowhere near as fast, nowhere near as fluid. It's one thing maybe I forgot to mention about Anderson. Very, very fluid fighter. Efe Ajagba is more upright, stiff, robotic. Now, in this fight against Brian Howard, I did notice that he's a little bit more fluid than he has been before. I'm sure him and his coaches have been working on that. There's still a long way to go, still very upright, but he definitely has punching power. We've seen that many times. And Brian Howard found out that he's got tremendous pop in that right hand. Brian Howard is a cruiserweight, really. Weighed 218 pounds for this fight, but he's really a cruiserweight. If you go to his record here, you'll see. I mean, look at this. He turned pro 194 pounds. He's fought in the 180s before. This was a long time ago, but still. As recently as 2019, he weighed 189 pounds. So this is a really small guy. And here he is fighting Efe Ajagba at 218. Brian Howard being a naturally much smaller guy, he did come with some speed. He did manage to clip Ajagba a few times in the first couple rounds. And he was getting quite comfortable in there, actually, by the third round. Too comfortable. He was fighting with his left hand down. And when you're in there against a guy who is a tremendous puncher, and he's much taller than you and he has much longer arms, you want to be very, very careful about fighting with your left hand down or either hand down, particularly at long range. You want to be real careful about that. Brian Howard, of course, wasn't. He got lulled into a full sense of security. Efe Ajagba lowered the boom, landed a tremendous right hand, which kind of landed on Brian Howard's ear, and he was out before he hit the canvas. One of the best knockouts you'll see this year. But am I massively impressed by what Efe Ajagba did there? Not really. He's still a work in progress. And the good thing is, he knows he's a work in progress. He's spoken in the recent past about how it's going to be a couple years before he's in world title contention. So he's realistic in terms of where he's at as far as development as a fighter. So, you know, he's working towards what he needs to be, which is more fluid, which is less robotic, learning the game. And you know what? I think this opponent was a good opponent for him, because you do learn things from opponents, not just in terms of about yourself, but you learn things about them which you might incorporate into your own game. Remember back in the days, people saying this about Marcus Maidana, as awkward as Maidana looks, the way he throws his punches. If you watch his career, if you track his career all the way through, you'll see that he actually took certain things from some of his opponents. Skills and moves that they used against him, he incorporated in his own game, into his own game, and used them against opponents going forward. And I think Efe Ajagba might be able to use certain things that Brian Howard did, feints, the movement, and so on. Obviously, he knocked the guy out in 3 rounds, so he's not going to take that mistake off Brian Howard. But little things that opponents do that make it difficult for you, you can definitely incorporate that for yourself. So I think that going in there against a more fluid guy like Brian Howard will help Efe Ajagba to become more fluid himself. That's basically what I'm trying to say here. So yeah, it was an adequate performance. Let me say that. Great knockout, adequate performance. He found his timing and range. Howard certainly helped him with a foolish strategic decision to be boxing at long range with your left hand down against somebody who's so much taller than you, with so much longer arms. I mean, 85-inch reach, Brian Howard's reach, what is it? 75? You don't want to be boxing with your left hand down, down in that situation against a puncher like this, who realistically outweighs you by what? 40 pounds or more? Because I know he was only 240, but Brian Howard at 218, 20 pounds less. But Brian Howard was fighting at under 190 pounds back in 2019. So Brian Howard, what's his natural weight? Maybe 200? Probably pumped himself up a bit, done a bit of weightlifting or whatever the case may be to get up to 218. And I'm sure he dehydrated himself. Actually, this is intriguing to me. Why was Brian Howard 219 or 189, excuse me, back in 2019? What's that all about? Why did he weigh so little for that fight? That was an 8-rounder. Before that, 196. Okay. I don't really understand why he's so light in these fights. 174 pounds. I missed that. He's fought at light heavyweight before. That's crazy. How is this guy jumping up in weight this much? So in 2018, he was 174 pounds. And now he's 218 pounds. That's a massive gain in weight. So he must be hitting the gym like nobody's business. And of course, getting down to 174, he must have dehydrated himself crazily to get down there. So perhaps his natural weight is around, I don't know, 195. The point I'm making is he's a much, much, much naturally smaller guy than Efe Ajagba. And when you're going in with someone who is so much bigger than you naturally, you need to play to your strengths and you need to be real careful not to get caught out there like Brian Howard was. You know? Anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comments below about Efe Ajagba's performance. Whether you saw improvement, because I think I saw some, and what you think he needs to do moving forward, the kind of opponents he needs to fight, the kind of things he needs to work on, and so on. Let me know, people.